Hello and welcome back. So the last one I titled Once Upon a Midnight Dreary. I thought I'd bring that up and kind of glance through it real quick before going back to what I was talking about. I realized I didn't finish what I was saying because I was so excited to just cut the episode short. Like, oh yeah, I guess I need to go now. Peace. I misclicked it. I was like, peace, and then click it. Boom. Then I'm like, wait, I wasn't really, I mentioned at some point, somewhere in this episode, I'll talk about the wind being or whatever, that the blue star was considered, and some thoughts that came to mind. So as soon as I saw the wind god, it's like, okay, I'm not finding anything about the blue star, but I'm finding this, the wind god. That's interesting. And I kind of went through the titles that I found worth opening the tab for. I can't right click some reason. Maybe Raven's Great Adventure. I had to do it like this. Let's just do that one too. Okay. So, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." I don't want to read the whole thing. It's pretty long. But I found it interesting that it opened that way. While I pondered, weak and weary. I'm pretty weak and weary. Pondering, sure. Maybe not midnight, but midnight in some senses. Over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. Just not accounted for. It's not incorporated into our collective understanding anymore, so it's basically forgotten. It no longer influences the large scale collective, except for that some people know of it, but it's not incorporated and creating a change. Just, oh, that's cool. Okay, so let's start here. I'll go like that. Long, long ago, the Hopis were greatly troubled by the wind. It blew and blew and blew and blew all the time. The Hopis planted their crops, but before the seeds could begin to sprout, the wind blew the soil and the seeds away. Unhappy and worried, all the people made prayer offerings of many kinds, but they accomplished nothing. Sounds like the collapse of the third world, just by that kind of description. The old men held councils in their kivas. They smoked their pipes prayerfully and asked one another, "Why do the gods turn such strong winds upon us?" After a while, they decided to ask for help from the little fellows, who were the two little war gods, two of the 5 grandsons of Spider Woman. "Why did you ask us to come?" was their first question. "We need your help," answered the old men. "Something must be done to the wind." "We will see what we can do for you," said the little fellows. "You stay here and make many more prayer offerings." The Hopis make many kinds of prayer offerings, as many as there are prayers, and there are prayers for every occasion in life and death. They are reverently fashioned of various types of feathers, carved and painted sticks, and hand-spun cotton yarn. The little fellows went first to their... Wait, let me read that again. reverently fashioned of various types of feathers, carved and painted sticks, and hand-spun cotton yarn. The little fellows went first to their wise old grandmother, Spider Woman. They asked her to make some sweet cornmeal mush for them to take along on the journey. Of course, they knew who the wind god was and knew that he lived over near Sunset Mountain in the big crack of the Black Rock. When Spider Woman had the cornmeal mush ready, the little fellows came back to the kiva where the men were holding their council. The prayer offerings were ready, and also the ball that the little fellows liked to take with them wherever they went. They liked to play catch with it. The men made bows and arrows for them to take on their journey, which seemed much like going on a war party. The arrows were tipped with bluebird feathers, thought to be more powerful than any other kinds of feathers. The two little fellows started toward the San Francisco peaks. The old men went along until they reached the little Colorado River, and there they sat down and smoked their pipes. The smoking of tobacco among the Hopis, as among many other tribes, is strictly ceremonial. The sacred smoke carries the prayers of the Hopis to their gods. Continuing their journey, the two little fellows played catch-ball from time to time. On the fourth day, they reached the home of the wind god, who lived at the foot of Sunset Crater in a big crack in the Black Rock. There he breathed through the crack as he does to this day. The little fellows threw the prayer offerings into the crack and hastily put their old grandmother's sticky cornmeal mush into and over the crack, and thus sealed the wind god's door. Phew! He became very angry, so angry that he blew and blew and blew. So angry, but could not get out. The little fellows laughed and then went home, feeling very proud of themselves and of what they had done. But after a while, the people in the villages began to feel very hot. Every day the weather became hotter and hotter. People came out of their homes and stood on housetops to look toward the San Francisco peaks to see if any clouds were coming their way. But they did not see even a wisp of a cloud, and they seemed not to feel a breath of air. They thought they would suffocate. We must do something right away, everyone said or thought. So the men made some more prayer offerings and called the two little fellows again. Please go back to the house of the wind god at once and tell him that there must be peace between us. Then give him these prayer offerings and let him out. This heat is much worse than the wind. The little fellows replied, "We will go and see what we can do with the wind god to make life more comfortable for you." After 4 days, they arrived at the house of Yapancha, the house of the wind god. The little fellows decided that the wisest thing to do would be to let the wind god have a small hole open, just enough to let him breathe through, but not enough for him to come out of the crack in the Black Rock. So they took a little of the cornmeal mush out of the crack. Immediately a nice breeze came out, and a small white cloud appeared. It floated over across the desert toward the Hopi villages. When the little fellows reached home, everyone was pleased. The Hopis had been grateful to the little fellows ever since. The winds had been perfect, just strong enough to keep the people happy, but not strong enough to blow everything away. Ever since then, every year in the windy month of March, the chiefs and the high priests of the 3 villages on the second mesa give prayer offerings to the wind god, Yapancha. I'm not sure what to make of it all. Initially, in the previous video, I pointed this out. This slit. basically. That's how I view it. It's a literal, like, slit in the neck where the doom shape moved over here and then went over here. And then it was just like billowing. Maybe inducing heat at that point. And then closed off in a way that disconnected it. I'm not sure what to make of it. I was also just thinking the possibility that it's the wind god, like, present in the South Atlantic anomaly right now. Essentially, the system that drives the wind of the earth and has been largely bottled up so as to not influence the earth somehow. Someone actually knew how to, like, prevent it from interacting with the earth well enough that they got it to stop, but then they did it too much and then the earth heated up and they managed to, like, have some exchange so that it wasn't totally cut off. I don't know, just a thought I was having. I don't know what any of these say, so let's see. Notably, the Bighorn. There's these horns here. This is Bighorn Mountains here. Here's like a nostril, mouth, chin. Maybe another horn up there. So when I see this, big head and goat horn. The goat horn maybe is more spiraled. Not Minecraft. Why would it do that? Why would it do that? Nope, not spiraled. Okay, it's more... It's relative. I mean, it can be spiraled, but not like so much so that I was thinking of it like... So, like, it could kind of be something like that. Also... Okay, let's see what this says. Halaxay in Orabai they were living. East of the Quan Kiva, a youth lived by the name of Bighorn, Big Head. A ways south are the Hopi Buttes, and on the westernmost butte lived Goathorn. These two were friends, but as they lived so far apart, they did not visit each other often. But one time, Goathorn visited his friend in Orabai. After they had eaten and talked together, towards evening, Goathorn wanted to return home. "My friend," he said to Big Head. "What is it?" the latter replied. "You must come and visit me sometime too," Goathorn said, whereupon he went home. After a while, Big Head visited his friend and stayed all night there. In the morning, Goathorn killed a goat for his friend, cut it in two, and gave him one half, which Big Head took with him to the village, and that is the reason why Hopi, when they kill a goat, cut it up. I'm just thinking, is it possible this is also like a goat horn spiral structure here? Like a goat head somewhere. With this being the big head. And they interact with one another. I'm not sure, like, what angle this could look like. A goat head. Less so this way. Maybe. Right there. Like the horn going back that way. Eyeball generally around here. Baphomet. Nothing popping out. Unless that's the eyeball. It's not the best. It's not the best goat head. That's for sure. Okay, what else we got here? The snake myth. North of the Grand Canyon lived people who were then not yet snake people. They lived close to the bank of the river. The chief's son often pondered over the Grand Canyon and wondered where all that water went to. That must certainly make it very full somewhere, he thought to himself. So he spoke to his father about it. So that is what you have been thinking about, the latter said. Yes, his son answered. I want to go and examine it. The father gave his consent and told his son that he should make a box for himself that would be large enough for him to get into, and he should arrange it so that all openings in the box could be closed. This the boy did, making also a long pole, according to others, a long beho, with which he could push the box in case it became fast or tangled up anywhere. When he was ready, he took a lot of behos and some food, went into the box, and allowed himself to be pushed into the water, on which he then floated along. Finally, he came to the ocean, where he drifted against an island. He found the house of Spider-Woman here, who called him to come to her house. He went over and found that he could not get through the opening leading to her house. How shall I get in? He said. The opening is too small. She told him to enlarge it. Spider-Woman's house. Okay, opening. It just makes me think of the mantle or the fountains of the deep. Here. Wait, where is this? This he did, and then entered. He told her a story and gave her a beho and said that he had come after beads, etc. She pointed to another kiva away out in the water and said that there were some beads and corals there, but that there were some wild animals guarding the path to it. If you had not informed me, how could you have succeeded in getting there, and how would you have gotten back? But I shall go with you, she said, because you have given me a beho, for which I am very glad. She then gave the young man some medicine and seated herself behind his right ear. He spurted the medicine over the water, and immediately a road like a rainbow was formed from the dwelling of Spider-Woman to the other kiva. On this they went across the water. As they approached the kiva to which they were going, they first encountered a panther who growled fiercely. The panther over here. The young man gave him a green beho and spurted some medicine upon him, which quieted him. A little further on they met a bear, whom they quieted in the same manner. Still further on, they came upon a wildcat. So these I don't have, at least sequentially. Like I could look to North America. Seems kind of like bear claws going on up here, but I've never seen like a bear over here. I never looked, but I don't see any immediate reason to say bear, except for just out of desire to. I'm on to something, yeah. And finally, a very large rattlesnake, which we definitely have found rattlesnakes more so. The rattlesnake tail here that then vibrates in the Tibetan Plateau across at different wavelengths. Smaller wavelengths down here. One that goes all the way across even to there, pretty much, and across to here. Across to here. One that goes up and back here, and then here. It's like a fish. Within it having like circular features as well in the lakes. Like rings forming. So this is kind of like a rattlesnake tail at least. So maybe there's a bear. What about here? Is this like a bear ear, eyeball, mouth? Kind of. I don't see anything else in the bear, but maybe. So if it went from the Grand Canyon over that way, and then past the panther, which was still forming more so. Like Australia, this was here. This was over, Papua New Guinea was here. Plus some. That to this, plus this. And then this was down in here. This was attached here. So there was a time that was over there. So following this trail, maybe, in a way, went by the panther over here. The panther was forming like down here. With underneath South America even. So it doesn't really follow the sequence, if you will, to go panther and then suddenly just go up here like, oh, bear. Oh, rattlesnake tail. But at least it's like following the details more, although, wait. Young man gave him a green bayho and spurted some medicine on the panther. A little further on, they met a bear. Still further on, they came up upon a wildcat. Gave him a bayho. So they're all giving these things a stick, it sounded like, if I read that right initially. Pole. It's a pole. Prayer stick. Prayer stick. Okay, so they get a prayer stick. I'm just thinking, like, here's that. Is there maybe a stick? Prayer stick involved. Like a stick. Bird with a stick, if there's a bird with a stick. I don't Know where like that wildcat would be if this is a bear head. Kind of looking up. That's some berries. Bear looking up. Kind of, we need it sideways. More like this one, maybe. It looks pretty good, honestly. It's even got like this thing going on here. Wildcat. Could there be a cat here? Like an eyeball. Somewhere. Tooth. Let's keep looking at this. Bear. Wildcat. Gray wolf. Rattlesnake. They then arrived at the Kiva, where they found at the entrance a bow standard. They then descended the ladder and found the Kiva. Many people who were dressed in blue kilts had their faces painted with specular iron, and around their necks they wore many beads. Like, could this be a cat? And maybe an eyeball, nostril, jaw. A wolf, was it after that? Bear. Wildcat, gray wolf, and then rattlesnake. So they're going boom, 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 and then up this way, I guess. I'm not sure why the bird wouldn't be closely involved. It's almost like it's avoiding mentioning the bird. If there is a bird, this looks like a T-Rex or something. Some kind of dinosaur head. They then descended the ladder and found the Kiva. Many people who were dressed in blue kilts had their faces painted. The young man sat down near the fireplace, Spider-Woman still being seated on his ear. But no one spoke. The men looked at him but remained silent. Presently the chief got a large bag of tobacco and a large pipe. He filled the latter and smoked 4 times. He then handed the pipe to the young man and said, "Smoke and swallow the smoke." The swallowing of the smoke was a test. Anyone not being able to do that was driven off. Spider-Woman had informed the young man about this test, so he was posted. When he commenced to smoke, she whispered to him, "Put me behind you." This he did in an unobserved manner, so when he swallowed the smoke, she immediately drew the smoke from him and blew it away, and hence he did not get dizzy. The men who did not observe the trick were pleased and said to him, "All right, you are strong, you are certainly someone. Thank you, your heart is good, you are one of us, you are our child." "Yes," he said, and handed them some red nakwax Nakwakwosis in a single green beho. It's almost like he's deceiving a counter tribe, like he's from Atlantis, going to the Sawa kingdom, and they're testing him. But he's got this spider woman. They then become very friendly. Let's keep going. Your heart is good. You are one of us. You are our child. Yes, he said, and handed them some red and wax and a single green beho with red points, such as are still made by Shupaulafe in the Antelope Society. They then became very friendly, saving that they were very happy over the behos, saying that on the walls of the kiva were hanging many costumes made of snake skins. Soon the chief said to the people, "Let us dress up now," and turning to the young man, bid him to turn away so that he would not see what was going on. He did so, and when he looked back again, the men had all dressed in snake costumes and had turned into snakes, large and small, bull snakes, racers, and rattlesnakes, that were moving about on the floor, hissing, rattling, etc. Also reminiscent of just like snakes in Hindu prophecy, or prophecy in Hindu descriptions. Many snake-headed beings, gods. While he had turned away, Spider-Woman had whispered to him that they were now going to try him very hard, but that he should not be afraid to touch the snakes, and she gave him many instructions. Among those present in the kiva had also been some pretty maidens who had also put on snake costumes and had turned into serpents. One of them had been particularly handsome. It's like they put on a costume that enables them to shapeshift. It's almost like some advanced technology. Whoa. One of them had been particularly handsome. The chief had not turned into a snake and was sitting near the fireplace. He now turned to the young man and said to him, "You go now and select and take one of these snakes." The snakes seemed to be very angry, and the young man got frightened when they stared at him. But Spider-Woman whispered to him not to be a coward nor to be afraid. The prettiest maiden had turned into a large yellow rattlesnake and was especially angry. Spider-Woman whispered to the young man that the one that acted so very angrily was the pretty maiden, and that he should try to take that one. He tried, but the snake was very wild and fierce. "Be not afraid," Spider-Woman whispered, and handed him some medicine. This he secretly chewed and spurted a small quantity of it on the fierce snake, whereupon it immediately became docile. He at once grabbed it, held and stroked it 4 times upward, each time spurting a little medicine on it and thus freeing it from its anger. The chief was astonished and said, "You are very something. Thanks. Now look away again." He did so, and when he turned back, he saw that all the snakes had assumed the forms of men and women again, including the maiden that he had captured. They now were all very good to him and talked to him in the kindest manner, because they now considered him as initiated and as one of them. He was now welcome, and the chief invited him to eat. The manna, whom the young man had taken, got from another room in the kiva some bread made of fresh cornmeal, some peaches, melons, etc., and set this food before the young man. Spider-Woman whispered to the young man to give her something to eat too, which he did secretly. She enjoyed the food very much and was very happy. Now the chief asked the man why he came. "I hunt a good life, and was thinking about the water running this way, and so this way it runs. I have come also to get Hopi food from here. I also heard that there lives a woman here somewhere, the Shrangwuti, from whom I want beads." "What have you for her?" they asked. "These behos," he said. "All right, you will get there, but now you sleep here." But Spider-Woman wanted to get back. He told them that he wanted to go out a little while. Then he went and took Spider-Woman home and put her down. She invited him to come and eat with her. She had a povo picky off which she lived and which never gave out. But he left her and returned to the snake Kiva. Interesting. Where he was welcomed and called brother and son-in-law, although he had not yet married, but only caught the manna. So he remained there. That evening and night the chief told him all about the snake called altar, and instructed him how he must put this up and do that when he would return. He did not sleep that night. This is a long one. In the morning he again went on the same excuse as the previous evening, and went to the Spider-Woman, who went out. She made a rainbow road into the ocean to a high bluff where the Charanghuti lived, and to which they ascended on a ladder. They went in and found an old hag, but on all the walls many beads, shells, etc. The woman said nothing. The young man gave her the behos. Then she said faintly, "Thanks." At sundown she went into a side chamber and returned a very pretty maiden, with fine buffalo and wildcat robes, of which she made a bed, and after having fed him, invited him to sleep with her on the bed. Then Spider-Woman whispered he should comply with her request, then he would win her favor and get the beads. So he did as requested. In the morning he awoke and found by his side an old hag snoring. He was very unhappy. He stayed all night, the hag sitting bent up all day. In the evening the change, etc., that occurred on the previous day was repeated, but the hag after this remained a pretty maiden. He remained 4 days and nights with her, who is the deity of the hard substances. After 4 days he wanted to go home. So she went into a room on the north side and got a turquoise bead. Then from a room west the same. From a room south a reddish bead. From the one east a hard white bead, a shell. Then she gave him a few of all kinds of beads and told him to go home now, but charging him not to open the sack, because if he did they would be gone, and if he did not they would increase. You go to the snakes, who will give you clothes, food, etc. He then returned to the snake Kiva. There he stayed 4 days and 4 nights, sleeping with his wife. When he was ready to go home with the chief said, "Take this manna with you. You have won us. Take it all with you. Take of our food. Practice the ceremonies there that I told you about. This woman will bear you children, and then you will be many, and they will hold the ceremony for you." So they started. At Spider-Woman's house, he told his wife, "You stay here, I will go to the rear." So he went to Spider-Woman's house, and she asked, "Well, did you get the manna?" "Yes." "Well, you take everything along." But she forbid him to touch his wife while they would be on the way, as then his beads would disappear, and also his wife. So they started. The beads were as yet not heavy. During the night they slept separately. In the morning they found that the beads had increased, and they kept increasing as they went along the next day. The next night they spent in the same way. They were anxious to see whether the beads and shells had increased, but did not dare to do so. The third night was again spent, and the contents of the bag increased the same as the previous 2 nights. The bag with the beads and shells now became very heavy, and the young man was very anxious to see them, but his wife forbade him to open the sack. The 4th night was spent in the same manner, and when they arose in the morning, the sack was nearly full and was very heavy. Spider-Woman had also put some beads into the bag with the beads, strings into the bag with the beads, and the beads were strung onto these strings as they kept increasing. They now approached the home of the young man, and the latter was very anxious to get home in order to see the contents of the sack, so they traveled on. When they had nearly 1 more day's travel to make, the sack had become full. During the last night the man opened the sack, although his wife remonstrated most energetically. He took out many of the finest beads and shells and spread them on the floor before them, put them around his neck, and was very happy. So they retired for the night. In the morning they found that all the beads, except those which Shrang Wuti had given to the man, had disappeared. Hence the Hopi have so few beads at the present day. If that man had at that time brought home with him all the beads which he had, they would have many. Stupid men. So when they arrived at home, they were very despondent. At that time, only the divided or separated Spring clan and the Pona clan lived at that place. But with the arrival of this young couple, a new clan, the Snake clan, had come to the village. Soon this new woman bore many children. They were snakes who lived in the fields and in the sand. They grew very rapidly and went about and played with the Hopi children, whom they sometimes bit. This made the Hopi very angry, and they said, "This is not good," and drove them off. So they were very unhappy. The woman said to her husband, "You take our children back to my home, and there we shall go away from here alone." Then the man's father made Behos gave them to his son, who put all the snakes with the Behos into his blanket, and took them back to his wife's home, and there told the snake people why he brought their children and the Behos. They said it was all right. Hence the snake priests, when carrying away the snakes from the plaza after the snake dance, take with them and deposit with the snakes some Behos, so that they should not themselves return to the village. When the snake man returned to his village lit, and his wife traveled southeastward, stopping at various places. All at once they saw smoke in the distance, and when they went there, they found a village perched on the mesa. This was the village of Waupi. They at once went to the foot of the mesa on which Waupi was situated and announced their presence. So the village chief went down to them from the mesa and asked what they wanted. They asked to be admitted to the village, promising that they would assist the people in the ceremonies. The chief at first showed himself unwilling to admit them, but finally gave his consent and took them up to the village. From that time, the woman bore human children instead of little snakes. These children and their descendants became the Snake clan, of whom only very few are now living. Reptilians? Makes me think of that kind of thing. Soon, also, the Batki and Waupi clans found admittance to the village. At Waupi, the snake people made the first snake Teponi snake altar and had the first snake ceremony. From here, the snake cult spread to the other villages, first to Shongove Pave, then to Mishongnavi, then to Arabi. At the first snake ceremony, the snake chief sent his nephew to the north, to the west, to the south, to the east, to hunt snakes. He brought some from each direction. The chief then hollowed out a piece of beho made of cottonwood root. Into this he put the rattles of 3 of the snakes and the 4th snake entirely. He then inserted into it a corn-ear and tied to it different feathers of the eagle, the oriole, bluebird, parrot, magpie, azia, tapakwa, winding a buckskin string around these feathers. When he made this Tepani, the first ceremony was celebrated, and afterwards it took place regularly. I don't know what to make of that, really. I don't know. How's this one? Not as long. Okay. The anew carved strange and beautiful figures representing People, animals, birds, fish, and supernatural characters, then paint them with bright colors. The tallest red cedar trees are selected for totem poles and are used for landmarks as well as illustrating the legends told from generation to generation. On one of these poles was carved a stunning raven, but he had no beak. The raven in Alaska was no ordinary bird. He had remarkable powers and could change into whatever form he wished. He could change from a bird to a man, and could not only fly and walk, but could swim underwater as fast as any fish. One day, the raven took the form of a little bent-over old man to walk through a forest. He wore a long white beard and walked slowly. After a while, Raven felt hungry. As he thought about this, he came to the edge of the forest near a river, or near a village on the beach. I'll just say words. There, many people were dancing and drinking halibut. There, many people were fishing for halibut. In a flash, Raven thought of a scheme. He dived into the sea and swam to the spot where the fishermen dangled their hooks. Raven gobbled their bait, swimming from one hook to another. Each time Raven stole bait, the fishermen felt a tug on their lines. When the lines were pulled in, there was neither fish nor bait, but Raven worked his trick once too often. When Huskana, an expert fisherman, felt a tug, he jerked his line quickly, hooking something heavy. Raven's jaw had caught on the hook. While Huskana tugged on his line, Raven pulled in the opposite direction. Then Raven grabbed hold of some rocks at the bottom of the sea and called, "Oh, rocks, please help me." But the rocks paid no attention. Because of his great pain, Raven said to his jaw, "Break off, O jaw, for I am too tired." His jaw obeyed, and it broke off. Huskana pulled in his line immediately. On his hook was a man's jaw with a long white beard. It looked horrible enough to scare anyone. Huskana and the other fishermen were very frightened because they thought the jaw might belong to some evil spirit. They picked up their feet and ran as fast as they could to the chief's house. Raven came out of the water and followed the fishermen. Then he was in great pain for lack of his jaw. No one noticed anything wrong because he was covering the lower part of his face with his blanket. The chief and the people examined the jaw that was hanging on the halibut hook. It was handed from one to another, and finally to Raven, who said, "Oh, this is a wonder to behold," as he threw back his blanket and replaced his jaw. Raven performed his magic so quickly that no one had time to see what was happening. As soon as Raven's jaw was firmly in place again, he turned himself into a bird and flew out through the smoke hole of the chief's house. Only then did the people begin to realize it was the trickster Raven who had stolen their bait and been hooked on Huskana's fishing line. On the totem pole, Raven was carved, not as the old man, but as himself without his beak, a reminder of how the old man lost his jaw. Old man. Jaw? Eyeball? I feel like these are eyeballs, so a jaw. Maybe this is the jaw that was here, or Philippines, or like down here, and then they got hooked by currents flowing in, literally like hooking them. Like this. So like this current goes in and like catches it, hooks onto it pretty much. Relatively speaking, it forms some kind of connection by going into it and moving it. So maybe there's some credence to that. Same for Philippines, which were up here and had the current flow into them in a similar way. came out of the water and followed the fishermen. They followed it. Like, let's say this is... where it's happening. Like, these parts follow it across. To the Eskimos, the stars are not just put in the sky to give light or guide the wandering traveler. They are living things sent by some twist of fate to roam the heavens forever, never swerving from their paths. One of these creatures who left the earth and went to live in the sky was Nanook the bear. One day, Nanook left the earth and went to live in the sky. One day, Nanook was waylaid by a pack of fierce Eskimo hunting dogs. Nanook knew only too well that Eskimo dogs are not to be trifled with, and he tried to give them the slip. Faster and faster he ran. Faster and faster he ran over the ice, but the dogs were still at his heels. For hours the chase went on, yet he could not shake them off. What are we looking at again? Bear dogs. In the fury and terror of the hunt, they had come very close to the edge of the world, but neither Nanook or his pursuers noticed. When at last they reached it, they plunged straight into the sky and turned into stars. To the Europeans, they are the Pleiades, in the constellation of Taurus the bull, but to this day, Eskimos see them as Nanook the bear, with a pack of savage dogs out for his blood. Up in the sky, directly overhead, the Eskimos see a giant caribou, though we call it the Great Bear. Over on the other side of the sky, they can make out some stars in the shape of an oil lamp. We say it is the constellation Cassiopeia. On the horizon, between the lamp and the caribou, the Eskimos see stars like 3 steps carved out of the snow. They call it the stairway from Earth to the sky, but we talk of Orion the hunter. Sometimes on the darkest nights, the Eskimos' dead ancestors come out to dance. The stars are the lights around the dance floor. Then Gula glows across the sky, the shimmering pattern of the Aurora Borealis. To the Norsemen it was Bifrost, the bridge from our world to Asgard, home of the gods. But to the people of the far north, the loveliest and most wonderful star of all is the sun. They see her as a young girl of dazzling beauty. In their brief Arctic summer, she is their night and day, for this is the season of the midnight sun, when her brother Ningen, the moon, chases her round and round the North Pole, so she cannot escape over the horizon. Ningen, the moon, is a great hunter, and he chases animals as well as his sister, the sun. He has a faithful pack of hunting dogs to help him. Sometimes his hounds are carried away by the joy of the hunt, and they jump over the edge of the sky and run down the stairway in Orion to Earth. That is why there are shooting stars. After hunting, a Ningen rests It really makes me think the edge of the earth, like the edge of the Laurentian situation here, is where these wolves are. Like, it's not the edge of the continent, but it's the edge of where Laurentia. Where's the other one? This one. This one biting here, this one biting like the moon or sun or something. Where this one's got a hold of something at the edge of the Rencha. I don't know why that would be edge of the world. I mean, it was in a way where all this was going on, so it was maybe where things would get churned into a destructive force that they just didn't exist anymore. They got anything that would float out into here largely maybe mixed with everything else in a way where like the structure was gone and it became more oceanic crust looking appearance, like this, much more like this. If it loads, or just kind of uniform relatively, where this is much more complex and this leads to structures. Like the fox and the maybe coyote. This is in another story. Somewhere here. I didn't know what to make of this, but I kind of interpret that. Is that a coyote? Bluff. I just literally interpreted it to be a coyote. A Kyoko. Okay, false alarm. False alarm. This one's pretty boring, probably, sorry. Just kind of read them. I didn't find many connections. I mean, on the plus side, I did notice the potential of a bear here. That's good. That's something. Maybe some animals here that I'm missing because I'm like, it's a bird, but not really accounting for it's kind of like the stags here where it's just overlapping and not even just 4 stags, but or more birds, but maybe some other animals. This kind of makes me think of a saber-toothed tiger, honestly. If anything, if any animal it brings to mind. I wrote it like saber-tooth. Let's see. Certainly not like actually saber-tooth. Like it's almost backwards. Like this one's more of the saber-tooth looking, but reminiscent still. Although with that in mind, maybe let's check it out that way. Maybe like an eyeball, nostril type thing. Saber-tooth. Lower jaw teeth in this case. I don't know if that's even related. It just makes me think of a saber-tooth. So we got this bear though. That's good. It almost makes me think of front arms. This one's so long though. Like this kind of looks like it could be just a paw. An arm off of the body. It's maybe a little lacking, or maybe the back goes over here, like the little butt, tail, the little tail here. Like bear tail. That little thing. Those kinds of things. This one's booty. Not something I thought I'd be Googling today. But yeah, it reminds me of that. Kind of there. So maybe it's more like kind of limited to like this height, and it's like down, crouching a little bit on its back hind legs, with front legs more up, standing at an angle like a dog sitting. Bear sitting. Bear sitting. Like this kind, but not this kind of sitting. Oh man, they just sit legs out like straight lounging. Straight lounging. Maybe they got some lounging. It's undefined, so it's possible there's some lounging going on there. Crouch. Maybe more like that. But like, more like that. Bear seems maybe be pooping. Oh damn, is this bear pooping on Sri Lanka? On maybe Asgard? Gray wolf and wildcat. Wildcat, sure, fine. I can kind of see it enough. It's pretty much a dog. Whoa. Just thinking with this hunchback kind of thing. That's probably somewhat common. That's a thing they do that I like there. is. Can we find some more? Yeah, he's got the back arced. This makes me think of a horse right here, maybe. Eyeballish region. Rhinoceros. Totally a rhinoceros right there. It's even got that second horn there. Like up there. Or another horn. That's pretty rhinoceros-y. Horse, rhinoceros. Bear. Upside down. Wolf. Where could there be a wolf? Maybe here, like a mouth here. Back there. It looks derpy. It looks so derpy. If so. Like an ear. Holding something in its jaw. Maybe with legs out this way. Like it's running. I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing here. Not as good as I would like it to be, that's for sure. Certainly is the potential of something of that nature, some kind of canine head out this way with an ear. Generally with the back of the Himalayas, but it's and it's not in order, like they went to the bear, and then let's say to the wildcat. So really the gray wolf. Maybe they went around the Himalayas, came to the gray wolf, and then came over to the rattlesnake tail of this region. Like if that were to be sequentially observing something. It's looking based on this spot. That's probably the best wolf I can find. I can find some kind of nostril and eyeball and lower jaw thing going on here, but I won't even say that's inherently like a dog species or whatever. Canine. Also, I found a picture recently. Where is it? I could have sworn I copied it over. There it is, this one. totally forgot about this picture. Pretty cool. Snake off a cursed magnetic anomaly. Another snake. Another snake this way. Another snake. Another snake over there. Another snake over there. Like the arms of the galaxy. And then a cow that has like rings in its ear, kind of like how sacred cows do in India. In India. Let's see if they just have earrings. They're certainly dressed up and made to look more honored and so on. I don't see any earrings. I mean, there's certainly some stuff going on, but it's not inherent. It's possible that it's in some of them, but like that looks more like piercings of some sort. Anyway, I guess I'm done this video now. I can look around a little bit more. Do I see any other creatures? That bear. I gotta remember that bear. Interesting. I haven't really looked in this whole region much. Also over here, like relatively speaking, over here, this place I kind of looked at, but I would like to look at more because I think it probably has very unique geology because it was hit by the sphere of Hawaii. That's my take. Something with these little divots relating to the process. Okay, that's all I got for now. See y'all later. Peace out.